There's a difference between liking a house and actually getting it. Redfin is built to make up that difference and close the gap between finding and owning the home for you. Redfin agents close twice as many deals as other agents. So when you find a home you love, you're not a step behind when it comes to making an offer. That means less watching great homes disappear and more focus on the one you'll call home. Redfin helps turn saved listings into real addresses. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, hey now, yeah. Hey now. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Hey now. How you doing, friends? Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey Now kicks off every single episode. I hope you like that. I love it. You can get Pat's music just about anywhere you get music, including Amazon, Spotify, Apple Music, and more. Coming up today on the pod, I'm going to talk about the new Liberal majority government that we have here in Canada. And yes, the Liberals have now got a majority government. What does that mean and what happens now? I'm going to talk about that. But I want to let you know that I'm going to be talking about a few other things, and I'm going to be over the next little while. I don't know how long it's going to be before we have an election, but I'm still going to be doing a podcast every single day, giving you exactly what I set out to do when I launched this pod over a year ago, trying to give you the counter narrative to what you're getting from the mainstream media. And frankly, the media last night were like kids in a candy store. You could tell some of our mainstream media news outlets were elated with the fact that Mark Carney now has a majority government. Why would the media be so happy? Well, number one, a lot of them are liberals. They don't declare it during their broadcasts. They never admit that they have a bias, but many of them are liberals. Card carrying. They go to the events. They donate money. They consider themselves liberals. So they're very happy on that level. On a professional level, what did yesterday do? It guaranteed that they're going to continue to receive their funding and their perks. And as long as they're nice to Prime Minister Carney, they will continue to have great access to the Prime Minister's office. They really get a couple of years off now, assuming we don't have another election for 3 years, although I assume it's going to be much sooner than that. Assuming we don't have an election for 3 years, the media has like 3 years off now. All they have to do is run interference for the government, snowplow enough controversial things so that they can get it passed, and then they'd have to work again when we have another election. They're going to spend the next 3 years trying to discredit Pierre Poilievre and get rid of him. They're going to try and get rid of anyone who poses a threat to the establishment, and they're part of the establishment. So that's their job for the next 3 years, and I think they're looking forward to it. They were giddy. We had by-elections last night, and they were treating it like it was a general election. Headset microphones, people set up at all the different winners' parties. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it for a by-election. But hey, that's our mainstream media in this country. They're very much homers for the Liberal government. And yeah, they're happy today. So coming up on the pod, as I will be doing in the coming days and weeks, I'm going to pivot to a few other subjects that are still just as important, but a little less politically focused because, well, an election is not imminent at the moment. Although, again, I still think we're going to be voting sooner rather than later. And I think this is a very fragile majority government. And I'll talk more about that in the pod. So on it today, I'm going to be talking about jobs. I'm going to be talking about opportunities for young people, and that starts with education. Big changes announced yesterday in Ontario. I'll give you the Coles notes on those. You're also going to hear from the Ontario Education Minister and from the federal NDP leader, the new guy, Avi Lewis. You're also going to hear from a voice that many of us grew up listening to, the great Joe Bowen. For those who don't know, Joe Bowen has been the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs radio broadcasts since 1982. He's been doing it for 44 years, and he announced at the beginning of this season that he was going to retire at the end of the season. And going into this season, there was reason to think the Leafs might actually be good. They weren't. They're not even in the playoffs. Last night, they played their final home game of this season. Tomorrow, they'll wrap up the actual season in Ottawa, and then they're done for the year. Those guys are going to be on the golf course on Thursday. I'm confident in it. So the Leafs are done now at Scotiabank Arena for this season. Last night, the team paid tribute to Joe Bowen. And Joe gave a speech afterwards, and I'm going to play about 2 minutes of what Joe had to say last night after the game. I think this is incredible. It's a little inspirational for Leafs fans, and if you're not a Leaf fan, well, just be kind to us right now. We're dealing with a terrible hockey team that didn't even make the playoffs, and it sucks. So, if you're not a Leaf fan, if you're a Habs fan, Oilers fan, Canucks fan, I don't want to hear it. 2 minutes talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Here is the voice of the Leafs radio broadcasts, Joe Bowen.
And they needed to pick a team and then stay with them through the thick and thin. I've done my share of brainwashing when it comes to this. Leafs, Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Toronto Argonauts, Green Bay Packers. Disappointment will always outweigh exhilaration. It's the nature of sports. But the Leafs are like a much-loved family member who often will do something terribly disappointing, requiring discipline and often some tough love. But in the end, that love of family never leaves, and the family becomes tighter because of the experience. The Toronto Maple Leafs will once again hoist Lord Stanley's chalice. And yes, I'm disappointed it didn't happen on my watch. I often remind folks the Boston Red Sox went 84 years between World Series, Chicago Cubs 104 years. But when the Leafs are on the cusp of victory, I know the Leaf fans will gather with loved ones. Some will bring an urn down close to the TV, or maybe some will bring the radio to a graveyard to be with parents or grandparents so that everyone can enjoy this very special moment. I sincerely hope that I'm here to enjoy that magical moment with all of you. To all of the Leaf fans that have stopped me to share a moment and offer congratulations, I cannot thank you enough. You are without question the most unique, loyal, supportive fan base in all of sports. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your drive or bringing us into your living room, rec room, or man cave. I will forever be in your debt. I will never, ever forget your kindness and constant support over 44 years. I don't know if I got through that, but I did.
Wow. Wow. From one broadcaster to another. Joe Bowen, thank you for all the memories. Holy Mackinac, what a career you have had. I am so happy that I got to hear you call a Leaf game with the passion that only you can. Thank you, Joe. Enjoy your retirement. Good luck and Godspeed to you, and God bless your family, and thanks for all the memories over the years. Joe Bowen is going to do his final Maple Leafs broadcast tomorrow night at Canadian Tire Center in Canada. It is the Leafs versus the Senators. Sens are going on to the playoffs. The Leafs are done for the season. Thanks a lot, Joe, for a great career. Congratulations. And again, thanks for all the memories. All right, friends, let me get into the content that I had originally planned for today. And I want to talk first and foremost about what happened yesterday in politics. Wow. We have a minority government that was sitting. And there was a couple by-elections called. You know that. Those by-elections were held yesterday. 2 of them in Toronto, 1 of them in Terrebonne, Quebec. The Liberals win all 3 of them. That's fine. They're basically retaining those seats. But through floor crossers, through some dirty backroom deals, the Liberals have managed to eke out a majority government. And what that means is they're going to control all of the committees. They're going to control the speed that legislation makes it through the House of Commons. They're going to be able to pass anything they want. And we know there's some stuff that the Liberals have wanted to do for a very long time. But we had an opposition that wouldn't let them get away with it. Now the opposition has basically been silenced, more or less. I don't want people to think the opposition plays no role here, because the opposition still very much does. The Conservatives, the New Democrats, the Bloc Québécois, the Greens, they all have a role in trying to hold the government accountable, and I know they will. The problem here is they don't have enough votes to stop the Liberals from imposing their agenda. And their agenda, we all know it. We've seen it play out for 10 years. The Carney legacy is part of the Trudeau legacy. And while it's not finished being written yet, there's a lot of reason for regular Canadians to be very concerned because, let's be honest, things are not going very well. And that's with an opposition that's trying to hold the government to account. When the opposition can't outvote the government anymore, the government, well, number one, they've got to wear it. Everything that happens in this country now falls squarely on the shoulders of Mark Carney. It is the Liberals' fault. And I say fault because I don't see a lot of good things happening right now, but I'm totally prepared to give credit where credit is due. Frankly, I haven't seen an example of that yet. We're going to keep doing a lot of the things that have been very unpopular in this country for the last 10 years. Immigration is not going to slow down. Not a lot is going to get done. A lot of announcements, very little follow through. It remains to be seen if Mark Carney is going to finally use the powers that he's had since last June and build a pipeline. That's something that I think by and large most Canadians agree on. There are no more excuses. Mark Carney has no one else to blame. If he doesn't deliver what he said he could do, this is 100% on him. He can no longer blame the opposition. And I know that there's people who are angry today. I know there's people who are sad today about what they think is going to happen to Canada. I'm going to try and be somewhere in the middle here. I'm not happy with the way this went down. I know that what the Liberals did was shady. They completely circumvented democracy and they told voters it doesn't matter what you think. It only matters what we want to do. The Liberals changed government when Justin Trudeau got elected in 2015. It stopped being about putting forward the best policy and Canadians vote for the party that puts forward the best policy. They get to go in and implement that policy. That's not what this is. Politics is a game and it's a team sport. And the Liberals have been playing to win. And they don't care how they win. They just want to hang on to power. And they're not going to care what we think until we start getting closer and closer to an election. And they need our vote again. We've seen this play out many times before. When we're in between elections, this Liberal government puts forward a lot of stuff that they know is not necessarily going to be popular, but they want to do it for whatever reason. And it depends issue by issue on why they want to do it. They're going to do it, just so you know. There's going to be a lot of unpopular things that are going to get done in this country over the next number of weeks and months and possibly years that are going to be wildly unpopular. But we already set the example. We let them do it for the last 10 years, and they keep getting reelected. Now Mark Carney has clawed his way from minority to majority through backroom deals. There's not much more I can say on this because I know those feelings are out there. Anger, apprehension, sadness, fear. Canadians are feeling all of those things because we now have a government that we did not elect. And by the way, that's not a nuanced point. That is a fact. We did not vote for a majority government. In voting for a minority, what we did was provide some checks and balances. A minority government for Mark Carney a year ago was basically the Canadian people saying, okay, we're going to give you the keys to the car. We're going to let you drive, but we're going to be right here in the passenger seat. And we expect the opposition to tap the brakes if you start going too crazy here. Now we don't have that fail-safe anymore. The Liberals can do whatever they want. There are two Conservative members of Parliament who put out statements following last night's by-election victories for the Liberals. And by the way, again, all the Liberals did was hang on to some seats that they had some members give up because they wanted some plum political appointments. The by-elections is not how Mark Carney got a majority government. He got the majority government from floor crossing. All those by-elections did was shore up seats that they already had. Let's be clear about that. We did not elect a majority government. We elected a minority government, but Mark Carney has found a way to get himself basic carte blanche in the House of Commons. He can do whatever he wants to do now. And if Mark Carney decides Canada is no longer going to align with America, we are going to be with China, he can now do that. If Mark Carney decides Canada is going to join the European Union, he can do that. And that's because of dirty backroom deals. Like I said, there are two Conservative members of Parliament who put out statements last night. I want to read them to you as they were written because I think these two statements combined sum up the situation we're in. The first one is from the Conservative Party Deputy Leader, Melissa Lantsman. Melissa says, "You voted. You made your voice heard. And now, behind closed doors, politicians who decided their ambition mattered more than your choice traded your vote away like a bargaining chip. And while the prime minister was busy engineering that deal, your groceries and your gas got more expensive. Your rent went up, and day to day, everything gets more expensive. Canada now carries more debt than at any point in our history, with the fastest shrinking economy in the G7. They're counting on you to feel defeated, to walk away, to let them govern without ever having to answer to you again. Don't. Your family deserves affordable food, a home they can live in and one day own, and streets where they feel safe. Canada's workers, those in uniform, and everyone trying to do better than the last generation deserves a government that respects them. We're not going anywhere, and neither should you." If you are not happy about what went down with the by-elections and the Liberals getting a majority government, this is an absolutely perfect day to join a political party. And I'm not going to endorse the Conservatives or the NDP or the Greens or the Bloc, but I'll tell you what, you can very much play a role in being the opposition. And I challenge everybody who's angry right now, listen to Melissa. Don't feel defeated. Don't walk away. Don't let them get away with it. You can be part of the opposition. You've just got to get politically active, and that starts with joining a party. The other message I want to read to you is from Conservative Member of Parliament, Aaron Gunn. He is the Member of Parliament for North Island, Powell River. Let me read to you what Aaron wrote. "The media is being disingenuous with Canadians, this time pretending Mark Carney earned his majority government at the ballot box. The truth is, those were already Liberal seats, two of them among the safest in the country. The previous Liberal MPs recently resigned. Mark Carney's real majority was obtained through backroom deals and floor crossings over the past 6 months. The first time in more than 150 years of Canadian history, a prime minister has sought the almost unlimited power of a majority government, not through a mandate from voters, but through their very deception and deceit. Counting on the individual weakness and duplicity of a handful of MPs to overturn the result of a democratic election and concentrate power that the prime minister may covet but does not deserve. The Liberals may consider this strategy to have been a success. But as the shine of their government and Mark Carney inevitably wears off and the electorate realizes they are left with a different leader but the same policies as Justin Trudeau, voters may well resent the fact that in many ridings their vote will feel stolen, their voice silenced, and the verdict of Canada's democracy rejected and ignored." I've got a lot of DMs on this topic. Some of them I was going to get into today, but let's let it simmer. Let's let it simmer. Today is day one of the Liberal majority government, where they can basically do whatever they want. Again, I know how a lot of people are feeling today, and I felt a lot of those emotions too. But at the end of the day, being upset about this isn't going to change anything. Demanding change is what begins to change things. And you can start by getting politically active. I'm going to move on, friends. That's all I've got to say today about this dirty, dirty, dirty situation that we've got. I mean, I'm really struggling to call Canada a true democracy right now. And while nothing illegal got done here, we can all agree the way Mark Carney did this, being so afraid to come back to the Canadian people and ask for a majority mandate, because he knows those polls are wrong. He knows they're wrong. I know they're wrong. Many people know they're wrong. He was afraid that he wasn't going to win. And he said, I want to get my agenda passed. So I'm going to do whatever I have to do and spend whatever it costs to make sure that I can get my agenda passed. And that's what he cares about, his agenda. When Mark Carney is done being prime minister, he's gone. He's going back to America, possibly over to Europe. He's not staying here. You're not going to see Mark Carney at Canada Day celebrations on Parliament Hill in 2030. Not a chance. He's here to get done what Justin Trudeau couldn't get done because Trudeau got way too woke and way too unpopular. Carney still wants those things done. And because Trudeau couldn't get it done, he stepped in himself and he's damn well going to do it. And he's doing it. So let's let it happen. There's a lot of people who are upset about this new Liberal majority government who said to them, who spent like the last year and prior to that trying to convince family and friends. These guys aren't who they say they are. They're not looking out for Canada's best interests. They make a lot of announcements, but they don't actually follow through, and they're wasting a ton of money. I know you tried to convince your family and friends that that was the case, that Carney isn't who he says he is. That this Liberal government isn't in it for Canada, they're in it for themselves. You tried. I tried. Many people tried. Well, now Carney's got a majority government. Now he's going to sink or swim based on his own political acumen. And if he sinks, and there's a lot of reason to think he will, some of the damage that's been done under Trudeau can't be undone that quickly. And that's going to lead to a lot of heartache and a lot of hardship here in Canada that Carney will not be able to prevent, including in the jobs market. Well, that's all on the Liberals now. That's all on the people who voted Liberal. Now we're stuck with it for the time being. Let's see where it goes. And I'm going to try and approach this with a little bit of optimism because, frankly, you can't not. I want our country to do well. And for our country to do well, I need our government to be good at governing. So far, there's no evidence that they're good at governing, but it's a new day. Maybe with the majority, they can turn things around. At the end of the day, I want results. I want Canada to thrive, and I want our middle class to prosper. To do that, we need the Liberals to be successful. Again, I don't know that they're going to be. Frankly, history has taught us a lot, and I don't know that they're going to be able to turn this ship around. However, if they're even interested in turning it around, by the way, because frankly, sometimes I'm not sure that they are. But we got to get behind the government, and let's see what they do.
Support for the show comes from Public, the investing platform for those who take it seriously. On Public, you can build a multi-asset portfolio of stocks, bonds, options, crypto, and now generated assets, which allow you to turn any idea into an investable index with AI. It all starts with your prompt. From renewable energy companies with high free cash flow to semiconductor suppliers growing revenue over 20% year over year, you can literally type any prompt and put the AI to work. It screens thousands of stocks, builds a one-of-a-kind index, and lets you backtest it against the S&P 500. Then you can invest in a few clicks. Generated assets are like ETFs with infinite possibilities, completely customizable and based on your thesis, not someone else's. Go to public.com/podcast and earn an uncapped 1% bonus when you transfer your portfolio. That's public.com/podcast. Paid for by Public Investing. Brokerage services by Open to the Public Investing Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services by Public Advisors LLC, SEC registered advisor. Generated assets is an interactive analysis tool. Output is for informational purposes only and is not an investment recommendation or advice. Complete disclosures available at public.com/disclosures.
Now I'm going to move on, friends. Yesterday, the jobs minister, Patty Hajdu, out making an announcement. The government really, really wants your kid to get into the skilled trades. Listen to this.
I just want to take a moment to talk about careers in the skilled trades. I see we have some skilled trades people in our audience, and I will say with full disclosure, even though my son hates every time I do this, but my son is a red seal crane operator, and so I've had an opportunity to see just how challenging and how rewarding it is to complete an apprenticeship in the skilled trades. But the government of Canada needs more than ever more people to enter the skilled trades because we are building an economy that dovetails with new technologies, but also practices that are deeply needed to build Canada strong. If we don't have the skilled tradespeople that we absolutely need more than ever as we see people retire and age out, then we are going to be limited in our ambition by the capacity of our human resources. And so the skilled trades are essential to the agenda of Canada. And in the coming years, there will be a huge number of skilled trade jobs, and these are quality jobs, well-paid jobs, honorable jobs, and I urge young people to consider a pathway into the skilled trades.
Okay, I'm going to point out that the jobs minister is absolutely right. It is a noble profession. There, most of the time, is a decent amount of job security, and yeah, you can make great money if you go into the skilled trades. But listen, let's make no mistake here. This government and the Ontario government, and possibly more provincial governments. I'm not as up on provincial politics in all provinces as I am in Ontario, but I can tell you this is a concerted effort by the government. What they're doing is this. If you come from money, you can go to university and you can get a white collar job, quote unquote. That's where you can work for the government. You can work in an advertising agency. You can do sales. You can do all these things. You can get your business degree, any of that stuff, if you've got money. But the grants that come through OSAP and student loan programs, they have all been slashed. Why is that happening at the same time when apparently we're trying to get more people into the skilled trades and trying to find more jobs and opportunity for young people? It's very simple. It's very, very simple. And Doug Ford is all in on this. You can tell by his changes to OSAP, the Ontario Student Assistance Program. If you have money, you will go to university. You have a shot at a white collar job. If you don't have money, you will go into the skilled trades, and that is just all there is to it. There's no gray area here. If you can't afford university, your only option is going to be the skilled trades. And while there's nothing wrong with going into the skilled trades, it's not up to the government to decide which kids do which jobs. It's never been up to them, but they're making it their business. They're setting up the system so that it's two-tiered. Those haves will be able to get that post-secondary education because their family has means and they can afford it. People who don't have the money or aren't interested in taking on massive student debt, they will go into the trades. Lower class, trades, upper class, university, white collar job. Think of it that way. That's what they're doing. And look at it through that lens every time an announcement comes out. There's no other way to explain it when you look at how much they're gutting grant and loan programs for post-secondary. They're trying to force people into the skilled trades, people that don't necessarily want to be there. And again, let me be clear. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a job in the trades. Nothing whatsoever. Good job, lots of security, noble profession. You make good money. But let's be honest, it's not for everybody. But that's what they're doing. I mentioned Ontario. Yesterday, the education minister came out and made an announcement about some big reforms that they're doing in education, namely in the area of trustees, but also a little bit in the classroom. I'm going to play the Ontario education minister, whom I happen to like. I think he's a very competent minister, and I kind of like the direction he's going right now when it comes to education. This is Paul Calandra.
And that is why earlier today I introduced the Putting Student Achievement First Act in the legislature. Now, if passed, the legislation will fundamentally transform how education is delivered across Ontario, building on the Supporting Children and Students Act passed last year. The legislation will introduce a new Chief Executive Officer role in every public and Catholic board. They will be responsible for budgets, staffing, and ensuring strong, accountable management. At the same time, each of these boards will retain a qualified educator as Chief Education Officer. Trustees will continue to play a role, but that role will change significantly. We will introduce a salary cap, reduce the number of elected trustees to no more than 12 per board, and eliminate most expense accounts except for modest, clearly defined budgets in rural and remote boards. Responsibility for local bargaining will shift. It'll shift away from trustees to the CEOs. We will also ensure that education dollars are spent where they belong by ending the use of these funds for excessive external memberships and fees. Board communications will be refocused strictly on matters of educational importance. Additionally, the legislation, if passed, provides the ministry with stronger tools to intervene in the capital planning process when boards are unable to deliver projects in the best interest of students and educators. Over the past year, I have listened carefully to hundreds of teachers who have shared their insight and advice. Their voices are reflected in this new legislation, which includes new measures to better support educators in the classroom. Now, we have already introduced a $750 classroom supply card for elementary homeroom teachers. And just last week, Minister Quinn and I announced updates to teacher education programs shaped directly by input from teachers, mentor educators, and students. Today, I'm also announcing new measures based on feedback from high school teachers. So beginning next year, all high school students across all grades will complete final examinations during a dedicated exam period. These exams will account for a meaningful portion of their grade. Final marks will also incorporate attendance and classroom participation, ensuring a more comprehensive and countable evaluation of student performance. Teachers have also told us that they need better tools and more consistent resources to deliver the curriculum effectively. So this legislation will provide that support, helping ensure consistency and excellency across classrooms in every region of the province.
Okay, I'm going to leave the Ontario Education Minister, Paul Calandra, there. Good. I asked this on my radio show today. Are these good changes? And I asked for educators and education workers to reach out and give me their feedback. So a couple of things. Number one, the changes to the trustees. Ooh, that was one that a lot of people were worried about. I still struggle sometimes to figure out what the trustees' role is anymore, but they're going to be capped at no more than 12. Most boards don't have more than 12 anyway, but either way, no more than 12. And their salary is going to be capped at $10,000 a year. No more is this just going to be a sweet little check that you get every couple of weeks from the school board for very little work if you're the only person who runs for the position. And there's a lot of people who are making a lot of money that could otherwise be going into the classroom, but they're taking that money as a trustee and they're not really doing a whole lot of work. In making their $10,000 a year with a modest expense account, what the trustees are going to do is basically be a parent advocate. So if a parent has an issue that they haven't been able to resolve with the school board or the principal, they could go to the trustee, and the trustee will then advocate on behalf of the parent to the board. But make no mistake about it, the board is being run by the director of education and the chief education officer. By the way, the person who's running the board, the director of education, will need to have a business background. No more wasting money. It's amazing that some people entrusted with a multi-billion-dollar budget can get that job with zero business experience. And they don't understand the ramifications of delaying certain business decisions and strategic moves that can save money. They don't get it. I have a feeling that money is going to start to be better spent, and I have a feeling that schools are going to start being a lot more accountable to parents, especially when we streamline things the way that we are. So I think that those are good announcements. But the one I think a lot of people are going to focus on and fixate on, the one that a lot of educators focused on when they messaged me this morning on the radio, is very simple. They like the attendance part. They like that a portion of your grade is now going to be determined by how often you show up. I had a co-op teacher message me this morning and say, we work our butts off to try and find co-op placements for these high school students. And the number one complaint that we get from the employer, kids don't show up. It's one thing to not show up to class. It's another thing to not show up to your co-op placement. Maybe we're sending the wrong message by allowing that to happen, that's okay in the real world when you're finished school and you get into the workforce. If you want to get paid, you got to show up. I think that was a great move by the Ontario government. Congratulations to Paul Calandra on that. I think that needed to be done. If you want to weigh in on that for this week's listener DMs, I'd love to hear from some education workers on whether or not these were the right moves. So far, everyone I've heard from seems mainly in favor. And again, the part that most people are fixated on is the attendance piece. That seems to be the one that is stealing the headlines. And why not? That is important. You got to show up for work. To teach people that you got to show up for work, you got to show up for school. Last thing I'm going to do in this episode is I want to play a little bit of a news conference that happened yesterday. While we now have a Liberal majority government, we still have opposition parties, not the least of which is the New Democratic Party. The NDP used to be run by Jagmeet Singh. Jagmeet Singh propped up Justin Trudeau and kept Trudeau in power and the Liberals in general way longer than they should have been or deserved to be. Seems like the NDP has turned a corner. For better or worse, they've turned a corner because their new leader, Avi Lewis, is very, very different from Jagmeet Singh. Yesterday, even though he doesn't have a seat in the House of Commons, he went to the House of Commons as the leader of the NDP, and he held a news conference. Here's a little bit of that.
Today, I'm calling on the Carney government to implement a national ban on surveillance pricing before it becomes a predatory new normal in Canadian life. Leah Gazan, MP for Winnipeg Centre, will be filing a motion on behalf of the NDP urging the government to take action immediately. We know that the rise in the cost of living, especially food prices, is already untenable for so many Canadians. And now grocery giants and other retailers are teaming up with big tech to squeeze people even more. Companies now have the technology to use our personal data, everything from our shopping habits, where we live, what we do online, or even how long our mouse hovers over a specific section of a specific website, to set individual prices for each of us. They have at their disposal an unlimited number of data points, harvested from our devices through digital surveillance and AI, that they are now using to predict the highest price they can get away with charging us. This means that two different people could pay two different prices for the exact same product in the same store or on the same website on the same day. It's unfair, it's a ripoff, and it's downright creepy. And it's time to put a stop to it.
Okay, that's the NDP saying they want to get rid of surveillance pricing. And frankly, I don't have a problem with that policy. If this is the first policy that the NDP under Avi Lewis is going to put out, I'm interested. I'm listening. If you don't know what surveillance pricing is, it's very simple. Using technology, companies don't just set a price and you pay the price if you want the product or service. They surveil you. They watch you. And they try and anticipate how much you're willing to pay for something. A great example is in travel. How many times have you gone online and looked up the cost of a flight somewhere? And it might say $399 to get you from Toronto to Orlando. $399. You think about it for a little while. Then you go back to book that flight maybe the next day, 2 days later. And lo and behold, that flight has gone up because it knows you're interested in it. It knows you might need it. And it's raising the price because it thinks you'll have to pay it. That's wrong. It happens with hotel pricing all the time. And the fear here is that it's going to start to creep into other industries. Imagine you do your online shopping, and through surveillance pricing, this technology and using AI, it knows, hey, this person's got a little one at home. They need baby formula. Well, if they're going to add baby formula to their cart, we know they need it, so we can charge them $5.99 instead of $3.99 because they've got no other choice. That's how surveillance pricing works, and it's wrong. I'm glad to hear the NDP wants to try and do something about it. Now, of course, we have a liberal majority, so unless the liberals are interested in doing that, which I don't think they are, this won't happen. But it's a good idea, and it's a good conversation starter. Good first effort there from Avi Lewis. After that, he did some Q&A with the media, and the media went after him. You know, I've been saying this for a long time. It used to be the media's job to help hold the government to account, to ask important questions on behalf of the Canadian people, to drill down on why they're doing what they're doing and try and make it make sense for people, maybe even try and correct some errors or omissions before something becomes law. That's what the media used to do. But now we've got a media that loves this government so much because the government gives them so much money that they actually do way more to try and hold the opposition to account, whereas the opposition has no role in creating policy. The government creates policy, but the media, they go after the opposition. If Avi Lewis starts making sense and starts becoming a threat to the Liberals, they will turn on him just like they did Pierre Poilievre. They go after Pierre Poilievre because Pierre's effective, because they know the polls are wrong. And they know that Pierre Poilievre is the biggest threat to that Liberal government and to their media subsidies. Listen to this. The media went after Avi.
I think you can see what expert mentors I have in sticking to the subject at hand, people. This is how you do it. I mean, we are talking about something that is of pressing concern to Canadians. Think about the last time you were in the grocery store. Did you see a digital price tag on the shelf? Do you know whether or not it's talking to your cell phone and finding out what you last searched for? Do you have any idea if you're paying the same price for toilet paper that the person who just took a package off the shelf did? That's what we're here to talk about today.
For Heather, can we get a question on Trump blocking Iranian ports? But Trump is blocking ports.
David, you're next.
Trump is blocking ports. Are we not allowed to get an answer from the Foreign Affairs?
What's next? I'm happy to take your question.
That's the press gallery's room. If Mickey's got a question, she got it up before I did. So
okay.
The question is for Heather as foreign affairs.
I'm going to
critic.
take the rest of the questions. Thank you.
Okay, well, what do you make of, well, first off, why can't the foreign affairs critic answer? And secondly, what do you make of Trump blockading ports in Iran?
It is. So, first of all, we had a conversation as a caucus before the press conference, and they encouraged me to do my first press conference on the Hill and answer the questions. Yes, I thought it was appropriate when talking about someone's personal future to give Alex a chance to speak about that.
When does the media ever go after the liberals like that? When does that ever happen? It doesn't. The system is rigged, my friends. Let's see where the day goes. Have yourselves a great one. I certainly appreciate your time. Thank you for checking out this episode of Scott Fox After 9. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you don't mind, share it with somebody else who might like it, who wants to know the counter narrative, who wants to understand what we're not being told from the mainstream media. That's what I strive to bring you every day right here on After 9. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.